Based on the great new book uncovering mindfulness in search of a life more meaningful, we bring you a new series of podcasts called From Mindfulness with Love by Paul Mudd, the author. Here's today's podcast. We hope you enjoy.
Are you in search of a life more meaningful? Welcome to the podcast that takes you from mindful to mindful. Leadership, resilience, compassion, success. Join the journey. From Mindfulness with Love, here's your host, Paul Mudd.
Only 3 things happen naturally in an organisation. Do you know what they are? Confusion, friction, and underperformance. The rest requires leadership. Hello, and welcome to today's podcast, which takes a look at mindfulness and leadership. How to be a mindful leader. Can mindfulness enhance the practice of leadership? Is it possible to be a mindful leader, and if so, how? To begin though, let's go back a step and ask, what actually is leadership, and what does it mean to lead? If you Google the term leadership, you can get around 800 million hits for your trouble, and upwards of 130,000 plus theories. Theories for action-centered leadership, adaptive leadership, authentic leadership, collaborative leadership, distributed leadership, eco-leadership, embedded leadership, embodied leadership, emotional leadership, functional leadership, gifted leadership, narrative, present, primal, resonant, servant, situational, somatic, transformational. I think you get the point. Are these then just variations on a theme? Before 1968 and John Adair's seminal book, Training for Leadership, we had the trait theory of leadership in the 1920s, born out of the then new phenomena of super bureaucracies, and which itself was looking ahead to the behaviourist and Chicago models of the 1950s. Then there was the style theory of leadership in the 1940s, that is, hail fellow well met and all that jazz. And latterly, we have contingency theory, and that is, leadership is dependent upon a certain contingency or situation, which, of course, leads us to situational leadership and has been driven in part by an increasing trend from the 1990s onwards for large-scale change and all the attendant problems that can create. That is, you tackle one problem or wicked issue and 5 more crop up. In fact, since Adair's book, which is widely held to be the first actual leadership textbook, ground zero if you will, over the following 47 years there have been 78,000 books published on leadership and management, and the leadership sector is currently worth upwards of £45 billion per annum. That's right, £45 billion. That's an enormous figure. Of course, leadership isn't a uniquely 20th or indeed 21st century phenomenon, although in the past 100 years there has been a marked shift from old-style management thinking and practice, think McGregor and theories X and Y et al., to the concepts and practice of leadership as a discipline and art in its own right, and the act of being a leader is the pinnacle of this shift. In fact, the concept of leadership and what it is to be a leader can be traced back over 2 millennia to Plato and the Greeks, Herodotus, Marcus Aurelius and the Romans, and Lao Tzu in 5th century BC China. In today's volatile, uncertain, complex and ambiguous world though, the traditional notions of leadership have been challenged in favour of identifying leaders and emerging leaders who are authentic, ethical, trustworthy and able to engage and lead in both the good and the bad times. And for me, the essence of leadership is having a following with the legitimacy or permission, if you will, coming from the leader's influence, passion and purpose, rather than from their position or authority. Great leaders move us. They inspire us to dream more, learn more, do more and become more. They give credit where credit's due, creating loyalty. They ask how they can be better by seeking feedback and engendering respect and trust. They also understand the nature of luck and prepare for it accordingly. They know their strengths and are acutely aware of their weaknesses. They surround themselves with the best people and, most importantly, they listen. They are curious and natural storytellers, able to create a compelling and resonant narrative that connects emotionally. And they are authentic, ethical, and trusted as well. Another reason that the role and practice of leadership remains under continuing scrutiny is because of the growing recognition that a high-stress and non-supportive workplace culture with poor leadership can have a highly toxic impact, not just on productivity and performance, but also on relationships, morale, and the retention of staff. In reality, leadership looks and feels context-dependent, and at its beating heart, it's about relationships. Relationships between the leader and whomever they lead, all inspired around a common purpose. A leader who engages, inspires, is authentic, trustworthy, curious, self-aware, and a great listener is, I believe, a mindful leader. And these characteristics make mindful leadership possible. A mindful leader pays attention and is present, which is about much more than simply showing up or just being in the room. Lots of leaders show up, but they're not in the moment. They find themselves distracted by whatever crisis, issue, or meeting is taking precedence, and this really undermines their ability to gather the necessary information and effectively judge and weigh situations in order to make the best decisions. However, because a mindful leader is more attentive and aware, they will surround themselves with great people and inspire them by being present both in mind and body. They will be genuinely interested in those they lead and their personal stories because they get the importance of that emotional connection. They will come across as more deliberate and considered, perhaps more grounded for want of a better term, and less likely to lose their cool. They will have their finger on the pulse and be aware of the questions to ask and of the places they need to look for those answers. Because they actively listen, the mindful leader will consciously tune into the song beneath the words and notice the little things, nuances and subtleties that may go unnoticed by others. The practice of mindfulness can enable the leader to be more thoughtful, considered and deliberate in their decision making, more self-aware, knowing how they come across and readily able to adapt for different audiences and situations, able to deal with all situations more calmly and less judgmentally, able to listen and understand more effectively, have greater clarity and precision of thought, as well as greater creativity, energy and resilience too, and have a clearer sense of purpose. Being a mindful leader means being aware of yourself, your environment, and how vital it is to approach life in an improved state of mind, particularly from a well-being perspective. A mindful leader will have perspective, intelligence and wisdom, coupled with compassion, empathy and great heart. A mindful leader will be emotionally intelligent, resilient, authentic, comfortable in their own skin, or as the French say, s'adapte un peu. A mindful leader will balance gentleness and strength, but also be humble and prepared to fail whilst embracing the learning that comes from any failure. And a mindful leader will know that their vision will be bigger and last longer than they will if they invest in a culture of focus, clarity and creativity amongst their direct reports, managers and followers, enabling them in turn to grow and become more mindful themselves. I talk in more detail about mindful leadership in my book, Uncovering Mindfulness in Search of a Life More Meaningful, now available on Amazon. You can follow the continuing journey, Uncovering Mindfulness, on Twitter at The Mindful Book, and that's capital T, capital M, capital B. And if you want to get in touch directly, email me at paul@themudpartnership.co.uk, and that's mud with 2 D's and all lowercase. I'd love to hear from you. And until the next time, be mindful. Hell yeah.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed, please subscribe and leave a review. We want your feedback. Help us support your journey uncovering mindfulness in search of a life more meaningful. For Mindfulness with Love, we'll catch you next time.